Hello, you through the books, boys. You've got Dean on the line. Who's calling?
Hi, Dean. This is Neil Rabin.
Ah, Neil, fantastic and well timed because we were just talking about your book, Flat, which I have here. An
What
edgy voyage of
amazing timing.
accidental discovery. Yeah, we have a lot of good timing coincidences on this show. Neil, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just got
Fantastic.
back from a trip to Sicily.
Nice. I'm actually 3 days back from a trip to Mexico myself. So I
Ah,
think we were both away maybe around the same time.
yeah, yeah, sounds right.
Fantastic. So I want to chat to you a little bit about the book. Flat.
Cool.
I really really enjoyed this one. It's a lot of fun. Um, and actually, before I even read it, I love the cover. It's just got a nice strip of color coming down here with the sea. Fantastic.
Yeah, the cover came out really well, and there's a little backstory on the cover. So my wife, who's a theater director, she wanted to do the cover for this one, and like, okay. And then we used AI. We used Chat GP. No, it wasn't Chat GPT. It was some art,
Hmm.
and we just put in, ship at sea, and it framed it up, and the artist got what we did on AI and made an
Oh,
incredible cover out of it. Short, so it
nice,
shortened the whole process.
nice. So I wanted to ask about the book itself. So how long did it take to work on this, first of all?
4 years.
4 years. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I had to do a master's deep dive in 16th century history.
That's why I wanted to ask, because with a book like this, there's a bit of a need to look into the history a little bit, and of course that doubles and triples the time taken to write it. So it was a long a
Got it.
long piece of work.
Yeah. My other one took me 4 years too. It might just be my process.
Okay,
Books,
could be.
someone reads a book in a couple days and it takes, the writer years to write.
Yeah,
It seems unfair.
it is. I mean, you're not the first person to say that. So I tend to read about 100 pages a day. This is in around 340. So you took 4 years to write it, and I probably read it in, yeah, less than 4 days, which is always,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's entertainment. So entertainment should be swallowed in short gulps.
Well, that's the thing. It'd be worse if it took me 3 weeks to read because I, just couldn't be bothered with it. It was enjoyable, it was engaging, and I wanted to get through it. So that's a good sign, I guess.
That is a good sign. I appreciate that.
So we got some fun characters in the book. We got Contigo, for example, and we find out a little bit about his family origins later in the book. I don't want to really say too much about the characters in the plot just to avoid giving things away. I was really, really glad when you included a little bit of a romance angle with the one girl later in the book. That's something that always just appeals to me on any level. But I want to ask, I suppose, the characters are fun to read. Did you have fun writing some of the characters?
I did. There's certain scenes that are more fun than others. Certain uh, like I write with a compass. There's two ways to write. You can write with a compass or write with a map, if you know what I mean. A
Hmm.
compass is kind of the discovery. I know where I'm going. I just don't know the exact route. If I was writing
Yes.
murder mystery, I would need an exact map. And so I discover the characters along with the reader, and then you develop them, of course. But yeah, some of them really made me laugh. And writing's tough. Some days are good, some days are harder. But in general, I do enjoy the characters, and I've heard that people say they're a nice group to hang with.
That's the vibe I got. I got like, yeah, because there's a lot of piratey sort of swashbuckling to an extent, and I got the feeling like, yeah, it could be a fun group to hang with, jump on board the boat and go off on an adventure with the gang. It's yeah, I think that's pretty spot on.
Yeah, so I'm glad they were enjoyable. Sometimes I'll scaffold people I know and as a basis for a character, and then fill them out as the need arises for them to have certain characteristics.
Sure, sure. And I mentioned Contigo. There's a funny line about him where they kind of say like something along the lines of like you're a very mysterious butcher, or perhaps you're not a butcher at all, because you wouldn't expect a butcher to be quite as interested in the political goings on and to be quite as deadly, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Deadly is the exact adjective. Yeah.
Yeah. So our
Yeah, I
main
think
character Lanning eventually has to look after do a bit of babysitting as well. And he says something like, what am I supposed to do with one of those things? Children, And I think, oh, that's how
yes,
I feel sometimes.
yeah, exactly. I mean, until I had kids, I didn't want kids.
Yeah. Of course, the girl turns out to be, well, not really a child, and they get along quite well. What is the story with her having the bird? So tell us about the bird of prey that she's able to summon to attack.
Well, well, as part of the royals, she's a she's part of the royal family. She hangs out with the aristocrats, and they have obscure pets. And falconing was kind of a thing in the 16th century.
Sure.
And so I just decided, she being lonely, she needed some kind of pet. I didn't want to give her a dog. I didn't want to give her a cat. I wanted to give her something that had, a little bit more options for entertainment. And
Hmm.
so just a falcon just made me laugh because
Fair,
I'm the
fair
first
enough.
audience. And so it's got to entertain me because I'm sitting with it for 4 years. And then
Yeah,
I,
that's fair. That you need something to entertain yourself. And there
yeah,
are some funny moments in the book. There's a moment fairly early on where one of the kind of pirate guys is like, "Well, do we not burn the ship?" And the captain's like, "Well, we don't necessarily have to burn the ship." But then he ends up like punishing the guys anyway because he's like, "You know what? What the heck?"
yeah, short temper. And that guy ends up in the water, as you know. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's the kind of inn or tavern, I guess is maybe the better word, that they go to hang out in, have some drinks and food, and they're always kind of complaining about the quality of it. Kind of made me think of like
The
a Blackadder style sitcom or something.
Yes, it is. It does have that kind of Monty Python-esque
Yeah,
the squirrel and mutton. I
that's
think
it.
I was in England and I, was looking at all the pub names as you do, and I just thought what what could be more funny than the squirrel and mutton?
Yeah. At the same time, they complain that the food isn't very good. There really isn't any good mutton or whatever, and but they put on some entertainment things in the pub, so it seems like it's still a kind of fun place for them to hang out, even though the quality's not great.
Yeah, I used a history teacher at the University of Madrid,
Nice.
who he had read my previous book, 23 Degrees South, and he offered to help me if I ever needed help. And I sent him a bunch of questions. What did people do on Friday night? Was there even a Friday night? What jobs did normal people have? What did they wear? Why did they wear? Just as much mundanity as I could muster to ask. And then I mixed that in with he gave me some books to read about the period, and it rounded it out and created good boundaries for me to write within.
Yeah. That's probably, a really good way to approach it because it's not something you think about. You think, okay, what are the big points in history from this time period? But if you've got to write characters, you have to know, well, what are they doing when they're not, having a big political event? What do they do on a normal Friday night?
Exactly. What did the Spit Boy do after work?
Yeah, exactly. That's great. And we have this one character I kind of like. I see him as a kind of mafia boss almost, and he has the kid's finger cut off, and then years later the revenge story kind of comes. The
Yeah.
guy Peaches, just for calling him Peaches.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Well, if you're in his line of work, I don't think you want to be called Peaches, but he didn't.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't, to be fair. And there's like this mixture of things that could be taken comically or seriously, with the King of Portugal being poisoned and things, and they're immediately just like, oh, it must have been the chef, and it's like, well, if you knew about stuff, you'd know it wasn't. But I guess that's the easy go-to. And he tries to rescue him with like a piece of bamboo, and the guy's like, oh no, the king doesn't like bamboo. He's like, you're an idiot. I'm trying to save his life, you
Right,
know.
right, exactly. And that, Bartolomeu Diaz, I think is who, well, these are all real, people. Like Manuel was the young king of Portugal. Diaz was a famous explorer. They were all, inhabiting that time period.
That was
And
something I wanted to ask as well. How that kind of blend of real people and obviously fictional characters as well. Was that something that was tricky to do, or did it come straightforward enough for you?
it came pretty easy because we're all we're all people. We're all human. We all have foibles, and we all have flaws and fears and explorers. They weren't gods. They were motivated by their pocketbook and opportunity, and it just so happened that in that day, that was a line of work.
Hmm.
If you were ambitious.
That's fair. And I suppose the main thing I want to ask you about is the title. So the reason the book is called Flat, I presume, is because we do have one part where we're talking about, well, they're in a time period where they're assuming the Earth is flat, and the new sort of science is coming out where, well, maybe it isn't. And that's where the title of the book is coming from. Is that something that you see as being important to the story, or was it just something that you wanted to kind of throw in?
No, I think what it does is it's a metaphor for how we all deal with fear. So, in that period of time, was the earth round or flat, and how people deal with uh, events of the day. So it
Mm,
to me, are you curious about what the actual truth is? You can map that onto any political uh, current or social structure that exists today and then. And how people deal with their fears is what I wanted to get at and study. So every character actually has a fear that they're dealing with.
yeah,
And Flat is just a great one. I just think it's a great title. Um, but it is a metaphor for how we deal with things, and do we step forward into our fears, or do we shrink back? So it's just a reminder that um, that runs throughout history.
yeah. I think that's fair, and I think it's a good metaphor, to be honest. And it's a very impactful title. Those kind of one word like titles are usually like very impactful, you know?
Right. Hey, books, you got to market them. It's high pitching, and
Yeah.
Flat makes you go, huh?
Well, exactly. And speaking of marketing, the next question I sort of always ask everyone is, would you like to take 30 seconds and just plug where people can get the book or your website or something like that?
Oh, I can do all that. The
Cool.
book's available, of course, on Amazon, where the World of Books is available. Barnes and Noble. It's available wherever books are sold. My website is neilrabin.com. Pretty simple.
Cool. I'll put a link as well in the show notes.
Cool. And yeah, it's available, of course, in ebook or printed. And like you said, it is cool to get the printed version because the cover is cool.
The cover's cool. I love, printed books myself. Second, I suppose, marketing adjacent question. What's next for yourself? Are you working on something else?
I keep getting asked that, and at this point, I'm a little bit out of words, so I got to recharge.
Fair enough.
When you're writing, you feel like you're using the same 12 words over and over again. So I might do. There's an NPR program called The Moth, which is about you orally tell stories, and they record it. They're sort of story
No.
fest, story slams.
Okay.
And I'm thinking I might do that. I used to do improv comedy when I was younger, and
Fun.
it's a challenge. I just like to. If something feels scary, then I know it's kind of the right thing to do, to go for it. So that seems like something that I might be interested in. So I'm looking at that.
Awesome. I almost forgot one of my favorite moments in the whole book is when our chap gets kind of held up or robbed or I'm not
Oh,
sure what the right word is, mugged potentially by two identical twins back to back. And he's kind of
yes,
like, we just did this. What are you doing?
yes, Dean. I have to tell you, when I wrote that, like when that occurred to me, I laughed out loud.
Yeah, that bit's fantastic. It's actually my favorite moment in the whole book, I think, just for the
Yeah,
comedy of it.
yeah. I just thought it was really funny and original. And I mean, I hate to do that. I hate to blow my own horn, but it was a great moment. Thank you for noticing that.
Yeah, no, I almost forgot to mention it. So, final question that we ask everyone who calls in, if there's any book that already exists that you wish you'd been the author of, what would it be?
Oh, so many. Let me see. I'll give you a few. Well, a recent one would be Anthony Doerr wrote Cloud Cuckoo Land, which I don't know if you've read that, but read it. It's amazing.
Okay, I don't know it. I mean, I've heard of Fly Cuckoo Land because it comes obviously from the Greek play initially, but I don't know the novel.
Oh, it's a great book, and he is a really wonderful writer. Um, Siddhartha was a really profound book for me when I was young. So Herman Hesse, that's just a great
Sure,
book.
sure.
I really like Lamb, Christopher Moore, if you've ever
Hmm.
read that. Also kind of a retell of history, kind of right in my alley.
You're
Uh,
into your history.
yeah,
My
and I
degree's in history as well, Greek history specifically, and a bit of Roman, so I'm into my history as
really
well. Yeah, yeah.
you would love to go to Sicily. There are some amazing Greek ruins in Sicily.
Ah, that's what I've got to do then. I'll have to put that on my travel list.
Put that on your travel list. So there you go.
Absolutely.
That's a good taste of.
Hmm. Well, Neil, fantastic, and thanks for the recommendations. As I say, I'll put a link to the website in the show notes. Thank you so much for the book. I really, really enjoyed it, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Great. Please tell 6,000 of your closest friends.
I'll do my best.
Thanks, Dean. You take
Thanks.
good care.
Bye.
Okay, bye.